This is 757 Saturday Sports Talk. Here are Matt Hatfield and Coach Ed Young.
And we're delighted to be with you here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk. We have a special guest with us. You are quite familiar with him from his days with us in Hampton Roads on the radio side of things. It got it started with him many, many years ago. He did with a man that we lost, one of the greats in the broadcasting field, Tony Mercurio, who passed away after his iconic sportscasting career back in April. He is the college football guru. Go out and get his magazine. You'll see it scrolling across our ticker more about what he brings to the table each and every year. He's the very best. Phil Steele with us here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk on CoVA Sports TV. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're all over the web, Apple, Spotify, social pages like Facebook, X, Instagram, and so much more. Phil, good to be talking with you. It's almost football season.
Yeah, we're getting there. And, you know, I got to tell you, this is my favorite time of year because no deadlines. Magazines off to the press. Put 7 months effort into it. Now I just get to do radio shows 6 to 8 times a day and talk football all day long. It's like being on vacation, guys.
Yeah, it is. And we love watching you, listening to you all over the world. And I know you do your Phil Steele YouTube shows through the Plus and everything that you bring on the website, which we'll hit in a second. But I did mention that one of the guys that helped launch not just my career, but yours as well, as you become this college football phenomenon, is the late, great Tony Mercurio. Just tell us about what he meant to you. And he was one of the very first people you did radio shows with, correct?
Absolutely. And he got me really started. He's did some radio shows with Tony early on. You know, the thing that I was fascinated with was any radio show that I had done early on. You do a show in Washington, you talk about Washington. You do a show in, Ohio, you talk about the Ohio teams. But in Virginia Beach, I would get questions from all over the country. And Tony explained to me it's a naval base is there, and there's a wide variety of people. So I'd be on my toes each week to answer questions from any team. And I believe they even had me on before the magazine came out. And then once the magazine came out, it was all the rest. But Tony was just a tremendous guy. Had me on every week, and I miss him. There's no doubt about it. He was tremendous, and got my whole radio, TV thing career started.
Absolutely. Rest in peace to the blast man, Tony Mercurio, who passed away in April. I remember many a times answering the phones with Dino Ritchie and the boys back in the studio. Ed, as we've got the one and only Phil still with us. And Ed, this year, you'll be so proud, Phil. He always asks when we've had you on, can you send me a couple free copies? I said, this guy works too hard. Go out and spend the money on it. And Ed went out and bought one. Thankfully, he's not going to clamor for a freebie, at least yet.
Phil, I wasn't asking for the freebie. I said, well, there might be one where some of the print was messed up, a picture screwed up. Phil's going to toss it away anyways. He can send that one my way.
I appreciate you reading the magazine and appreciate you getting one this year. Yeah,
I did. I went. In fact, I told Matt the crazy story. I went to the place to get the magazine. Of course, we all know you put them at Barnes & Noble. Not only did I buy your magazine, I walked out with about 4 other magazines. No football.
Wow.
But a couple baseball. Yeah, one wrestling and then a basketball book I had to get. So I spent like $100 because of this guy getting on my case about getting out there and selling it. Yeah, I got mine too. So I'm going to hold mine up too. So everybody sees it. I got it. But I looked at the – as a matter of fact, there was a guy standing next to me, Phil. You like this story. And he saw me picking these magazines up. And when I saw yours, I said, oh, there it is. And he said, hey, is that magazine any good? I said, well, you see those 5 sitting right over there? I said, those would be a waste of your time. This one right here, you may never get through the whole thing. So he kind of went through it. He said, man, this is like a Bible. I said, it's a Bible. I said, I do a podcast show. And he is by far the greatest magazine of any sport. Been saying it, will continue saying it, of any sport. So the guy picked one up. So I think he was going to grab one of those Lindy's or whoever's. I said, no, this is the one you got to get.
He's working for commission now, Phil. He's trying to get commission out of you.
He's trying to. See, what Phil's going to say later is, you know what, guys, I might be able to send you 1 or 2 you can give away to your listeners.
There you go. Hey, I appreciate that, though, Ed, and appreciate the story about the magazine. You know, the funny thing is, and I'll be quick with it, but when I started in the magazine industry, Joe DelPablo, who did Game Plan magazine, said, Phil, the key to selling magazines is to be the first one out. Everybody buys the first one or the second one. Well, this year we went to the press June 7th. The other magazines were already on the shelves. but they had to go to the press before the transfer portal even closed. So they've got players on the wrong team, for crying out loud. People will wait around for mine because we waited a full 6 weeks for everybody to sign. We've got everybody on the right team. And I think we have 3 to 4 times the amount of information any other magazine. It's like getting 134 media guides all rolled into one.
Well, that's why I want to go with you, Phil, because we'll go ahead, Ed. Go ahead. Yes.
What I was going to say, just to piggyback on what Phil said, because I know his time is limited. I always was one, and Matt and I would argue about this, that I want the football magazines to come out as late as possible to give me enough information. And of course, you've done that. But that's, I think, is what a key is, because if you pick a magazine up and it's like not decided at press time, decision hasn't been made, like even with the NFL ones where guys haven't signed, I'm saying to myself, well, why am I buying this if they don't have all the information? And of course, in this day and time where everybody goes to the internet to get their stuff anyways, a lot of people say magazines are a waste of time. Once again, Phil, and again, it's not because you're on your magazine. It's almost like it should not have the word magazine. It has to have something else. It's above and beyond that, what people get, the information in it. And it's that type that once you start reading it, you cannot put it down. You just can't. And I get a kick out of some of the thing. My favorite part of it, page 2, the 12 TVs in your office, all football at the same time. It's the first thing I look at when I grab your magazine.
Appreciate that. Yeah. And a lot of time Mountain Dew goes into watching those games all day long on Saturday. So it's pretty intense, but I greatly appreciate that. And by the way, if we run out of time, I got till the top of the hour, guys. So just throw that out there.
No, we appreciate that. We're talking with the college football forecaster extraordinaire, Phil Steele. Let's go get his magazine. You'll see info scrolling across your ticket. I'll tell you more what's on philsteele.com as we chat with him. And I want to go, before we dig into the teams from the Commonwealth, like Old Dominion and Virginia Tech and Virginia, Liberty, James Madison, among others. Ed's going to pepper you about his favorite school, Notre Dame. We got some questions that have been sent in by some viewers and listeners out there. The changes, Phil, and you talked about it with the portal now, how, you got to wait a little bit to get the magazine out, but where we could be headed, and how does it change, maybe not so much your handicapping and forecasting, but how you prepare and do the magazine with so many changes with these big conferences and some conferences like the Pac-12, which really isn't even a conference, if you will, anymore.
Yeah, the Pac-2, and I'm a little remiss about that. I think we need regionalism in college football. I like the West Coast Conference. Now you have the Atlantic Coast Conference with Stanford and Cal in there. Come on, you might as well call it the All Coast Conference. But it has made it tougher for me because I liked picking 8 teams, or 7 teams in a division. Now you're talking about an 18-team conference. I've never forecast an 18-team one before. So you're going to pick a team 11th, and people are going to be like, oh my goodness, you guys picked low. It's like, I got you ahead of 7 other teams, for crying out loud. It has made it tougher to pick the conferences. And as far as where we're going conference-wise, I got to be honest with you, Matthew, if you would have told me 2 years ago there's no Pac-12 and we're going to have an 18-team Big Ten, I would have been like, really? I don't think so. And so I really have no clue where we're headed.
Yeah, it's strange times right now. And, of course, the expanded playoff. That's where I'm going to actually squeeze in one of our questions that we have for you in a moment about the expanded playoff. But as you look at the big landscape right now with college football, Phil, with the coaching changes, and Ed's is a longtime high school, former college basketball coach as well. What's your view of the sport? There's always these quarterback changes with the portal and so on and so forth, but no more Nick Saban in Alabama. You've got Kellen DeBoer at Alabama. No more Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. You have some big-name coaches that have changed, not just in college football. We've seen it in college basketball too. But what do you think right now with some of the power programs, the new situations for conferences for them, how it will impact them negatively, positively, and some of the big-name coaches no longer in the sport?
Yeah, I'll touch on a few specifically that we can go on. We'll start with Alabama and Nick Saban. And, when Nick Saban stepped down and a bunch of players hit the portal, that's what happens nowadays. Your coach leaves, you can hit the portal. Everybody reads your roster. I was thinking, hey, Alabama's heading for a rebuilding season this year. Maybe they go to 8 or 9 wins. But then Kalen DeBoer was hired, and he's brought in some great transfers. So we're talking about Damani Jackson from USC, a cornerback, Keon Saab from Michigan at safety. Heck, they brought in the Lou Groza Award winner, a kicker, and Graham Nicholson. They had snapping problems last year. problem solved. They bring in Parker Brailsford from Washington. They bring in a wide receiver from Washington and Bernard. They've got Jalen Milroe back. And going over the roster, and I do talk to over 120 of the 134 head coaches this year once again, and going over the roster with Coach DeBoer last year with Washington and then this year with Alabama. I actually think he's got a better team this year at Alabama than he had last year at Washington. All he did was get the doggone national title game. The guy's 104-12 as a head coach. So I think Alabama makes the playoff this year and is a legitimate SEC contender. Now, as far as some of the new teams coming in, the two new teams transferring conferences that I think will have the best impact, number one is Texas. Texas has a dream schedule in the SEC. They only have 3 SEC road games this year. One of them is against Vanderbilt, one of them is against Arkansas, and one's against Texas A&M. So a nice schedule. They've got the talent. I think they get to the SEC title game in their first year. And likewise in the Big Ten, I'm very high on Oregon. And Dan Lanning's doing a tremendous job, not only with high school recruits, but with transfers as well. He loses a guy like Bo Nix, who had a 45-3 ratio last year, brings in Dylan Gabriel from Oklahoma, who had a 30-6 ratio. Now, he probably won't match Nix's stats, but it'll come close. They got my number 1 receiving core in the country, my number 3 rated offensive line, a lot of NFL players on defense, and they get Ohio State at home on October the 12th. It wouldn't surprise me if they win that. So I think both Oregon and Texas get to their conference's title games this year.
There you have it from Phil Steele. Go check out philsteele.com. You see, use that promo code 24Steele24 for $20 off any season package with Phil's weekly predictions and analysis by becoming a subscriber to the Inside the Press Box. It is 757 Saturday Sports Talk with Hatfield and Young at the Plex on CoVA Sports TV. Ed.
Well, Phil, you kind of touched on something I was going to throw at you. The jumping around of all the teams, I'm not for it either. I like regional. And to see these West Coast teams way over here in the East, I just don't like it, but it's the way it's going to be. I think it's going to continue. I said a year or so ago that I think what's going to happen is you're going to have your mega conference or two, SEC, Big Ten, and really their own set of rules. We don't need the NCAA. What for? Why would we listen to a group that says you have to do the same things as Troy University does? Come on now. Still think it's going to happen that way. The key is TV money, sponsorships money, and that does all the talk. You don't even see commercials anymore about NCAA putting on TV about NCAA student athlete. We are students first. That's gone by the wayside real quick because there's no way it's students first when Stanford's playing in the ACC, and then people don't understand. Okay, your football team might come over here for a Saturday game, got a day or two to fly back. But look at your spring sport kids, how they're going to have to endure and come and traveling and missing 3 or 4 days of school possibly. And what I was told by that was, well, kids don't go to class anymore anyways. Everything's on computer, so it doesn't matter. So it's like not only has what we see on the field in courts changed, the classroom has changed. It's just they don't talk much about it.
Yeah, I can't argue with you there, Coach. I mean, I do think we are probably headed for the two. I mean, the SEC and Big Ten are dominant right now. If you look at the playoff picture this year, I think an ACC champ gets in, the Big 12 champ gets in, the Group of 5 champ gets in, and then, of course, Notre Dame. I think all 4 of those teams make the playoff. The other 8 spots could very well be all SEC and Big Ten. You might see 4 to 5 SEC teams, 3 to 4 Big Ten teams. They are the 2 premier dominant conferences in college football right now.
Hey, Phil, let's jump into it with Old Dominion, a team in our backyard here in the 757 area code. Ricky Ronnie now in his 5th year. Of course, that first year of the pandemic didn't have a season, but he's got some quarterback continuity, which he hasn't had for a little while with Grant Wilson there. When they're not expected to do much, they tend to overperform. When there's a little bit expected of them, they may not meet the standards. What's your feeling on the Monarchs this year in the Sun Belt as they try to get back to a bowl and surprise more folks with a very challenging schedule that includes the Gamecocks and the in-state rival Hokies, who they've knocked off a couple of times?
Yeah, that doggone Ricky Ronnie, he just keeps doing it. The 2 years that they made a bowl game, I said they didn't have a chance of making a bowl game, and then he goes and does that. So I can't discount this guy whatsoever. He gets the job done. Just an amazing thing. Now, you look at their non-conference schedule. I mean, it is flat out ridiculous this year. They play South Carolina. They play East Carolina. They play Virginia Tech this year, so that's a brutal non-conference schedule. And then even the road trip to Bowling Green. Bowling Green's actually one of the best teams in the MAC this year. It's going to be tough to win any of those 4 games, but don't discount him. And then look, as you touched on, the quarterback, not only Grant Wilson, but they bring in Emmett Moorhead coming in from Boston College. The running back core, when I talked to Coach Ronnie, went over the team with them, he said he was excited about the room. It was overall their most talented running back room since he's been there. They add in Aaron Young from Rutgers, Bryce Duke from Virginia Tech. The receiving core comes back with a lot of strong players. Jalen Butler, a tight end, looks like an NFL tight end to me. The offensive line looks solid. So, and Jason Henderson is probably my biggest question mark coming off the ACL. Will we see Jason Henderson be the dominant linebacker that he's been the last couple of years? And if he is, this team could surprise despite the brutal schedule that they play.
And to follow up real quickly before I let Ed jump in here with Notre Dame, I'm sure he's going to get to with you. I'm going to hit on 2 more from the Commonwealth. We'll also hit on the ACC schools with the Hokies and the Who's in a second. But the Sun Belt rival, James Madison University, new coach and Bob Chesney coming in. It was previously Kurt Cignetti who bolted to the Big Ten and Indiana. Schedule out of the chute, Phil. They've got Charlotte. They got Gardner-Webb. They got UNC on the road in September. Big opportunity. As you saw last year, incredible ride. That tough loss that they had Appalachian State when they were rolling high. And they also beat, by the way, Virginia on the road, Troy, Utah State. What's your feeling on the Dukes? Can they follow this up again with another coaching change? They did it at the FCS level. Now it's FBS, even harder.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to match last year's 11-win total, but got to be honest with you, despite losing the majority of the team, and when I went over Indiana with Coach Cignetti, you'd be amazed how many James Madison guys are there that I'm projecting as starters. So they only have 4 back on offense and 3 on defense. But I like the additions that Coach Chesney's brought in. You look at Dylan Morris, a quarterback coming in from Washington. He's a guy that was started at Washington. And did well. And you look at the running back core, they bring in North Texas's Adehi, and they bring in North Carolina's George Petway. They're pretty solid there. They got Cam Ross coming in from UConn, a wide receiver. The offensive line actually looks like one of the better units on the team with 3 starters back, one of the rare veteran units on the team, I should say. And then defensively, there's talent there, no doubt. They do lose so much from last year's squad. But when I went through the schedule, looking at them, I actually have them favored in 9 games this year, so I can see them getting close. I don't think they get to the 12-win level, not with the amount of experience that they lost. They go from number 68 on my experience chart down to number 130, but I think James Madison fans should have another great year, and they will contend in the Sun Belt.
Phil, I look at Liberty, Jamie Chadwell, second year there, and I think they've won like 47 games or so the last 5 seasons. They had a big-time high-level quarterback in Malik Willis. They got a big-time quarterback now in Kaden Salter. You're feeling on the Flames coming off, in a trip to the Fiesta Bowl against Oregon. It didn't go great against them, but this program now is no longer viewed as one of those small-level schools. They're viewed like a team that can be one of those bust the party, break the bracket, if you will, type of teams this year. Are they a trendy pick for a lot of people and for you?
Yeah, I got them right up there. And probably the biggest negative for Liberty this year is they face the number 134 schedule. That'll be brought into the equation. But if you run the table like they did last year, they have an excellent shot at getting there. And the only game I have an underdog in all year, a slight underdog, is at App State. When you look at the talent for Liberty, it starts with Kaden Salter. I mean, Salter was a guy that had all the talent in the world. He was originally a P5 recruit signed to Tennessee and just hadn't lived up to it. When I talked to Chadwell, he was hoping to get it out of him last year. They did. Over 1,000 yards rushing last year for Salter. And then, of course, he had 61% with a 32-6 ratio. Then top that off, they led the nation in rushing, and they're not a military academy. They had Quentin Cooley is back at running back, their top guy. So a loaded run game once again. The offensive line looks solid. They've got Bentley Henshaw, an NFL caliber tight end, and defensively the bulk of the team is back. So this is a Liberty team that in my mind is the clear-cut favorite to win CUSA and possibly the clear-cut favorite in every game with the exception of App State this year. They are a legitimate contender to make the playoff. And I think if they do, you're not going to see the Oregon type of game that they had last year where they got blown out. I think they'll be much more competitive.
Wild, Ed, to think that Liberty can be a contender for the playoff, but this is the new world we live in with the college football playoff coming off that trip in the Fiesta Bowl against Oregon. We're talking with the college football expert, Phil Steele. Go get the hard copy. It's out there at Barnes & Noble here in the area across Hampton Roads. Also log on to philsteele.com. Become a subscriber inside the press box. So many great perks with that. I'll tell you about that as we roll on here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk on CoVA Sports TV. Coach?
All right, Phil, we got to break down our two big universities here in the state before I get to the number one in my book college football team ever in the country of the world, Notre Dame. But Virginia Tech, I know a lot of people are talking big about them. I think I did a quick look in yours, and you had a couple of your computers say potentially could be undefeated regular season. So I'm going to have you do Tech and then go into Virginia, where I saw you think that Coach Elliott may have his best team to this point, and look for this team, Virginia, maybe not to set the world on fire, but they're going to probably beat some people that people think they're not going to. So assess Virginia Tech, Virginia.
Yeah, Virginia Tech, I think really their fortunes changed last year when they switched to Kyron Jones at the quarterback spot. Jones was a dangerous runner, ran for about 800 yards last year, and a dangerous passer as well. So really made the offense more potent. All you had to do is look at how they were playing at the end of the season. In the final 4 games of the year last year, they put up 43 points per game, and they are one of the most experienced teams in the country. In fact, they're number 2 on my experience chart. You've got Jones back at quarterback. You got Brashal Tootin back at running back, Lane Felton at receiver, a veteran offensive line. And the thing I loved going over the team with Coach Pry each year, he still has Bud Foster come around, and you guys know Bud Foster, one of the best defense coordinators out there, and he's running Bud Foster's defense, for crying out loud, and we've seen the improvement each year. Last year, they gave up just 317 yards per game, 23.9. Now they got 10 starters back from that unit. When you look at their schedule this year, they do play Miami on the road on a Friday, and they play Clemson at home. Those are the only 2 real concerns I have with this team. The schedule is tailor-made for success. They play the second easiest schedule in the ACC, and if you told me right now Virginia Tech's in the ACC title game, it wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. They have the talent. They've showed the improvement, and generally third-year head coaches, that's when they hit their stride, because now every player on the team is basically recruited by them. Everybody knows the systems inside and out. They know the players inside and out.
How about Virginia there, Phil?
And when you go to Virginia, as Coach touched on, I think it's just by far Coach Elliott's best team that he's got. And the key to me, the biggest difference between this year's Virginia and the first 2 Virginia editions is the offensive line. I remember his first year, they had 2 career starts on the offensive line, and it was a mess. Last year, you figured, okay, everybody's coming back, and a whole bunch of players transferred out. They only had 17 career starts on the offensive line, and once again, struggled. Now, this year, everybody's back on the offensive line, 81 career starts, so I love that. I also like the fact that they were better than 3-9 last year. Remember, they led James Madison and Louisville in the fourth quarter. They lost to Miami in overtime, 3 games they could easily have won. They've got the defense, and last year they went to a more wide open offense. It showed. They gave up more points by facing more plays on defense, but all 3 units rank in my top units with the improved offensive line. They've got 2 veteran quarterbacks that have started, and Tony Muskett and Anthony Calandria. They've got Kobe Pace at running back and some good receivers. So by far the best team he's put on the field. The schedule's not easy. It's the 11th toughest schedule in the country, and they're probably going to be an underdog in 8 or 9 games this year, but it wouldn't surprise me if Virginia gets to a bowl. As you touched on, Matt, I don't think they're an ACC contender this year. Probably won't finish in the upper half, but this is a team that could surprise and get to a bowl game.
An ACC that now features Stanford and Cal. So wild. Go figure, Ed. And speaking of ACC, Notre Dame did play in it for a little brief period there a couple years back, the COVID year, Clemson ACC championship. They've had some ACC quarterbacks like Sam Hartman, Riley Leonard. Ed's excited this year. Ed, you're really excited, aren't you? You're thinking all the way.
Well, I'm hoping, but we know that everything's going to be fixed for the SEC because they cheat. They cheat better than everybody else. Notre Dame never cheats. Yeah, Phil, I get excited with Notre Dame. It's been the team I follow. We got the kid Leonard from Duke who almost tried to take down Notre Dame, I guess, last year. He got hurt. So, as we look at Notre Dame, and I'll keep my mouth shut because you'll know me a little bit better than me, is Leonard, everybody stays healthy, a better upgrade over Hartman, and their schedule does seem really good to them, but that first game of the year at Texas A&M could be scary. So assess Notre Dame for us.
Yeah, and I've got the Irish making a playoff for sure. I rank them number 6 in the country. The schedule is easier than what we've seen from Notre Dame in recent years. I rated number 57 in the country. And I don't know if I like Riley Leonard a lot, but I also like Sam Hartman a lot. And I know Hartman didn't finish the season strong. He sure started it strong. I think Leonard is a guy, as you touched on correctly, last year, had he not got injured, maybe Duke beats Notre Dame last year. Having him in there is huge. Keeping him healthy is going to be huge as well. But I like the running back core. They've got a very deep set of running backs despite losing Estime. You go look at Price, Love, Payne, even Ford. The offensive line looks solid. And the defense, going over the team with Coach Freeman, this is a very loaded defense. They got a couple NFL guys at the tackle spots, which I like when you've got like Mills and Cross there at the tackle and nose guard. A couple of big guys in the middle that are slow down the run. They got Xavier Watts at free safety, another NFL caliber guy. It's just a very dangerous Notre Dame team. As you touched on, Coach, that Texas A&M game I rate as a toss-up. It's the only game on their schedule I have in the toss-up area. I have them a favorite in all the other games. But College Station, Mike Elko, we saw what Mike Elko did for Duke last year, and the last 2 years, I should say, did more than what their talent. He prepped for Notre Dame last year, keep in mind. So he's knows Notre Dame inside and out because he's played them. That is a very dangerous game in College Station. I rated it a toss-up.
All right, Phil, we got some time, I think, for a few questions from some of our viewers. You ready for those?
Oh, I'm all set. Let's hit it.
Yeah, we got some. We appreciate the mailbag. You can always reach out to us via our YouTube, our Apple, Spotify. We're on Virginia Preps as well as on X or Twitter, 757 Sports Talk, and all over the web through Facebook, IG, you name it. And this one came in from Mark in Chesapeake. Phil, which school, you kind of hit on this earlier, benefit the most from the expanded college football playoff this coming year? A couple of teams that wouldn't have been in your maybe view of making it, maybe can make it this year, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll throw one out for you that really a little bit of a surprise. It's Utah out of the Big 12. And when you look at Utah, they're a team that last year had 5 losses, but they lost Cam Rising prior to the year. They lost their backup quarterback prior to the year. They had 3rd, 4th, 5th string quarterbacks. They were playing in the Pac-12, and the Pac-12 last year was actually one of the better conferences. It was right up there with the SEC and the Big Ten. They had their best year in 15 years. They also played the toughest teams on the road in Oregon State, USC, Washington, Arizona. In Rice-Eccles Stadium, they've lost 2 games the last 5 years. That's where most of their tough opponents are. They've got Cam Rising back. Teams can no longer stack the line against them because they can't pass. They've got that passing threat. They're strong at the line of scrimmage. I think Utah's got a chance of advancing in the playoff this year as well.
All right, another question for Phil Steele here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk on CoVA Sports TV. I guess this guy is someone that's got Army ties or maybe in the Army. Bob in Norfolk wants to know, hey, Phil, what do you think of Army and Navy this year? #Go Army, he says.
And it sounds like I'm doing the Tony Mercurio show with these calls
right.
from all over. I love it.
Around the 757. There you go.
Tony, I hope you're listening up there.
He is. I want to know about Missouri later too, Phil.
Okay. All right. Here we go. You have to. With Army, I think they're going to come in and do well. They've got a good schedule set up. They only have 11 starters coming back, but overall, they're about the same as they were last year on my experience chart. Bryson Daly being back at quarterback is good. The offensive line looks solid. Connor Funicane at the right tackle spot is an NFL caliber guy. And going over the team with Coach Monken, he thinks they're going to fit well in the American Conference this year. So I give them a really good shot at getting to a bowl game. And with Navy, they might be a year away from getting to a bowl. They're going to have to pull some upsets. They get Memphis at home. They play UAB on the road. If they can pull a couple upsets, they can get there. This is year 2 for Coach Newberry. Coaches usually hit their stride in year 3, but they've got Hovarth and Woodson at the quarterback spot. I do think for the big game, Army-Navy, Army's probably a slight favorite in that one. So our listener will be pretty happy with that.
There you go. I think we got one more question we can squeeze in before Ed and I finish up with one apiece, and we can tell you how you can get all of Phil's content, be it the hard copy magazine or what he provides online, be it for college football, pro football. There's one more question we got for you, Phil. We'll slide in here. Fred in Newport News, is there a defensive player or two that can challenge for the Heisman? Haven't had defensive guys in the Heisman very often. We think back to Charles Woodson, but it's usually a quarterback award, is it not?
It is, but I think I'm a Heisman voter, been one for ages, and I can tell you, I think a lot of the Heisman voters would like to vote for a defensive player if there was one there. I guess one guy I'll throw out is Harold Perkins, LSU. They moved him to the middle linebacker last year. Wasn't great, but now he's his second year. He's added 20 pounds. And he's a guy that can make those flash plays, and that's what's going to happen. You have to make the flash plays, you have to make the highlights, and do them in the big games. They get 3 of their biggest games at home in Mississippi, Alabama, Oklahoma, in Death Valley. And if he can make a lot of flash plays, then I think he might have a shot. But odds are it's going to go to a quarterback for a contending national title team. It's pretty much turned into a quarterback award, hasn't it, guys?
Yeah, it has. And the guy I'm liking, I'm sure you probably do too, Phil, is Dylan Gabriel at Oregon. He's thrown for a bazillion yards. I'll probably throw for a bajillion more this year with the Ducks, who have a great chance to not only win the Big Ten, but go all the way. And it feels like the finalists might all be QBs, but the way it goes. Although I'll give a name real quick. It's a thought, Phil. Travion Henderson, the running back at Ohio State from our state of Virginia, from the Richmond area, Hopewell High School. If he's healthy, I could see him having a big year for the Buckeyes.
The only thing I threw out there, Matthew, is that he's going to be splitting the snaps with Quinshon Judkins. So you probably have 2 guys about 1,000 yards. I don't know if a 1,000-yard running back wins it.
Good point. Ed, go ahead.
Yeah, I see, Phil, you had Henderson ranked the number 1 senior running back in the country, if I can remember looking over some of your rankings. And if I not mistaken, you also had Gabriel as a potential number 1 Heisman favorite. My guy that I'm looking at, because they're going to win, and his quarterback is Howard at Ohio State as a sneak in, and not really sneak in because I think he's ranked top 10, sneak in there for that Heisman also. Phil, I know our time is short with you. The question I want to ask, you're somebody who spends so much time with college football and talking with people on that. Let's make you the commissioner of college football. No, the czar, because the czar can do whatever you want without asking everybody else. Is there a change or two you'd really want to? I think maybe let's get back to regional play, but we know that ain't going to happen. Is there a change or two out there that's really on the front of your mind? I wish this would happen.
Yeah, I would say regional play would probably be my biggest thing. And when they do get the monster divisions, let's at least make them regional. The second thing I'm going to throw out, and it's just because I watch those 12 games on Saturday all the time. I don't like it when the games run into each other. Let's shorten up the games even a little bit more. Make them last 3 hours so I don't have to be having one game ending and the other game I'm missing the start of. You know what I'm talking about? So when you watch 12 games, that's my biggest pet peeve, is when they run into each other. Shorten up the games a little bit.
There you go. We'll get you on this film. We thank you so much. You've been so generous and kind with your time and your insight, which you just bring second to none out there to the folks. How can they get the magazine? If they can't get the hard copy at Barnes & Noble or across the 757 area code here in our great state of Virginia, what will they find online? And if they get the hard copy online, there's also some perks on that when they get with Phil Steele Plus and they get the VIP bundle. Go through those and what you do during the season week by week.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Matt. Now, the magazine is available, as you mentioned, exclusively at Barnes & Noble. And go in there. They've got the copies. They may have them on an end cap, but they've got them there. And check them out. That's the way to pick it up today. But if you order it online, the hard copy, I'm going to charge you a shipping charge. It costs to ship things. But I give you the digital magazine for free. And the digital, we actually update all the way through the start of the season. So Barnes & Noble or philsteele.com for the magazine. Then, as you touched on, Matt, I do a weekly newsletter called Inside the Press Box. I predict every game, including with the FBS versus FCS games. I've got them all. You've got the stats updated. Phil Steele Plus is what I use all season long. It's my website designed for me to use during the season, and I've given access to anybody. It's $99 a year, but you won't believe the amount of information. I could talk forever about it, but I highly recommend Phil Steele Plus. It's what I use to handicap the games.
And it's also what I use from time to time to beat Ed in our picks. So I want to give you a thank you. I get the upper hand on him every year. I use Phil Steele Plus. It's always a great resource tool.
Phil, he's a cheater galore. What I got to put up with on this show is unheard of. I should be getting paid.
Guys, I got to tell you, it was a lot of fun. This is Matthew, thank you for bringing up the Tony Mercurio memories again, because it warms my heart. And Coach, great talking to you. Thanks for getting that magazine. We'll send you that commission check on the one you sold there in the Barnes & Noble. Get you your 12 cents.
I'll take that. But Phil, in all honesty, again, and speaking for Matt will speak for himself. Having you on to go over this is, you got to understand, for us two nobodies in the business trying to make it the best show in the state, and we're just about there. Having you come on helps us do that, because you are absolutely the best in the business. Keep us always in mind, because we're always going to refer to you and come to you, if not even in the middle of the season, if we can.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I'm all for it, guys. Let's set one up for the season. I got to run. I'm talking to the coach of Delaware in a couple of minutes, so I got to get that one out of the way. But it was a lot of fun.
Hey, Phil, always a pleasure. Have a great one.
Thanks.
As the one and only Phil Steele with us here at Get the Magazine, as I turn from the back cover to front cover. It's all color right here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk. Look at him making time for us as he's got coaches he's talking to. We didn't even get a chance to get into it, Ed. He's doing some content on the FCS. People say, what's he doing on one? Only doing that on 1AA, the Delawares, the Women Marys. Yeah, he does that after he does this big project, the magazine, and then he gets ready for NFL, and he has so much info on his website. And it is the truth. I did get the VIP bundle like 2 years ago, and it's why I was beating you so easily in the pick. So I got to thank him and his staff. But really, it's a Phil power man job. He has some people that get him his interviews lined up and all that, but he is incredible. We thank him so much.
Well, we both have been in all the yearbooks of, football, basketball, especially. Blue Ribbon does a really good job with college basketball, but in all honesty, nobody touches Street and Smith. Phil Steele now. Street and Smith a few years back, I remember telling you that was my book, and you said, no, you got to try this guy, Phil Steele. And I heard when I was with Tony, we had Phil on in those early years. I remember. Never did I think it would evolve to what it is now, because I don't touch those other yearbooks. I don't even look at them like I used to. I grab Phil's and I have everything I'm going to need. And I'm telling you, people out there, if you're into college football or want to get into it, grab the Phil Steele book. Start going through it. He put stuff in there, units, underlying players you may not hear so much. I don't know how he does it. I love that page 2 where he has those 12 football screens with 12 games on at one time, and he's reporting on all of them. I don't know. Again, I just don't know how this man can do it. He's well over 100 hours a week in football. He says this is his relaxation time because he don't have to worry about print deadlines and getting the thing there, but he's still talking. As you see, he got off our show. He's go talk to coach for Delaware. And then, soon enough, the games will start and he'll be right back at it again.
Well, we thank him for coming on, and we've got some bills to pay and things to do as well here on this 757 Saturday Sports Talk in July. I'll be getting back in the pool soon, but before I do all of that, as Ed shakes his head, we got to hear from some of the sponsors that make it possible for us. We'll be back in just a moment here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk. Like, share, and subscribe on CoVA Sports TV.